joining us to speak on some of these conversations that we've had. Of course, like I said, Arise correspondent Judita de Silva joining us live from London. And I'm also being joined live in the Lagos studio by film director and screenwriter Ishaya Bako. Ishaya, it's fantastic to have you on the show today. Congratulations. I did not come to you by chance. That's an actual statement, but congratulations on the premiere of your movie yesterday. How did it feel just seeing that on the big screen?
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
First of all, and yeah, I mean, like, I think it was that culmination of years of hard work. So it's been 2 years since we started the active development on the film to when it's released. And a film isn't complete, at least I feel a film isn't complete until it's reached an audience. And it was really good to like bring it home, you know, like, and to the festival audience and Afrif, they've become like the premier film festival on the continent and in Nigeria in particular. It was great to like, show it at the festival.
Amazing. Well, Judita de Silva joins us now live in London. Judita, it's great to have you on the show as well. So let's begin with one of the major themes around this entire festival, Judita and Ishaya. It was creating an enabling environment for the Nigerian film industry. Judita, you have seen through AFRIF 2023, and we talk about this every day for the past, almost 5 years or more. We talk several nuances within film and television. So on your own thought process, what are your thoughts on the environment that we have? How can we do more to create this enabling environment for filmmakers that we're talking about?
I think, first of all, I would say credits to AFRIF and how far it's come as far as creating a landscape that is a high quality landscape for filmmakers to feel it's something aspirational. That is always something you want to give creative, something to shoot for, that looks like it's at the top. As far as like enabling the environment, it's a weird one. If you cast your mind back to the whole scandal of Lionheart not getting the Oscar recognition because it wasn't in an indigenous language, and everyone complained, Ava DuVernay got involved, but in a weird way, it was a reckoning. Because a certain attitude that Nigeria has towards what is homegrown, like it's not good enough, it's not shiny enough, it's not glossy enough, it shook them to their core. And we've seen the proliferation of content in original Nigerian languages. So a positive came out of that very public embarrassment. And now I think what the shift is that even though you enable the environment, like that is the yesterday talking about grassroots training, things that are just basic teaching. Every filmmaker has to have self-discipline. And when you have this self-discipline, it drives the pursuit of excellence. So it's not about who does what for you, it's about how you measure yourself. It has to come from each artist.
Quite honestly, I'm happy that you mentioned Lionheart, because some would say, okay, maybe we learned our lesson then, but then we now remember. And again, we spoke about this, it wasn't even about the movies for me when we had the NOSC no selection verdict for the Oscars International Feature Film category. It was the squabble for me. It wasn't even about the movies for me. It was the squabble. And it made me ask myself, okay, so this enabling environment that we are requesting, and Ishaya Bako, you are in the industry, so technically we're asking you again, what do you have for us? An enabling environment. How can we do better to create this? Because we can't sabotage ourselves. We need to help each other.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think there's something very interesting in what Juanita said.
Judita,
sorry.
Yes.
Judita said, and I agree with, in terms of like the filmmakers having the self-discipline. I think we are at a great point as filmmakers. I don't think at any point, like, this is like I say this a lot, that this is a very exciting time to be a filmmaker or to be in the creative sector in Africa as well, in particular, and in Nigeria in particular. I think the idea of an enabling environment, as in, like, obviously there's the government side of it, which we are always happy to have very strong opinions about. But the real thing about our film industry as a whole is that it's always been like private driven. It's always been against all odds. It's been against odds on what cinema is, it's been against all odds on the nature of the filmmaking. It's been against all odds in the way the audience has embraced it. And I think that's something we lean on a lot. And it's like, we have an audience for our films. We have an audience for our stories. We have our audience for our narratives. it's very important for the filmmakers to recognize that and take that responsibility on. It's obviously important that also, like, in terms of government policies around protecting, our working environment, in terms of making very sound and good collateral deals, or co-partnership deals, countrywide co-partnership deals, whether it's Nigeria, South Africa, whether it's Nigeria, any other country in Europe, because, like, the interest is here. Like, there is a very real, very true interest in Nigerian films and African storytelling. But it's also for us to take that advantage and, take that opportunity, which I think we are in a larger.
We are, but that takes me to the next part of this conversation, which has to do with funding. I'm all for, help us, give us the money, let's create magic. But I get a little sometimes. I mean, there are harsh realities of international support and government funding within the creative economy. And I want us to touch on some of those issues. Jimmy Jean-Louis said something while he was here, and he said it so plainly. I'm just going to paraphrase. He said, it's here in Nigeria, and if we don't make a move, everybody else will come in and help us make a move. Ju, do you want to jump on this?
Listen, I've been saying this for a long time, and like I'm getting old and tired, and the wrinkles are showing. I'm getting so fat. Because the thing is, let me tell you about what's going on here when you hear people talk about the film industry. For all the shout about Hollywood being big and shiny, Hollywood is dying. Hollywood is dying a slow death. By the time they realize what's happened, it's too late. And Scorsese is banging his drum. Christopher Nolan is banging his drum. Everyone is banging their drum. No one wants to listen. They call them angry old men. Hollywood is dying. But behind the scenes, executives are looking for the light for us. That is why since Parasite, anything Asian is getting bankrolled. It's like, just be Asian. Just come and say, hi, I'm slightly Asian. Here's some cash. That's what's going on now. The next thing that's going to be, the next pool that's going to be like that is Africa. They just need to have one big hit. Prove to me it's a viable business model, i.e. it will bring money in at the box office, it will clean up at award ceremonies, and it's gone. So the money is there. They're just waiting for you for a proof of concept. So what I'm saying to people that, look, no one who wants to see Merry Men 375, but I get the point of it existing. It puts coins in the copper. I get it. You need to have films that just put money in the bank. But at the end of the day, when you have that money in the bank, look at studios like A24. There's a certain amount of money that will always go to indies. Then there's a certain amount of money that puts money in the bank. Because those indies will get you respect and awards. Those silly films will get you the cash to fund them. Until Nigeria begins to think that way, you are just going to be making movies that have no point but keep you afloat.
It's interesting because I was just talking about this with you, Shaya, and we were basically saying this, that there's this difference about what will be, everybody wants the blockbuster, the loudness, the excitement, the action, and all of that, the funny, we laugh and we go. But then that beauty of the storytelling, that beauty of the cinematography, that movie that you will watch and you'll be like, wow, the same effect that blew everyone away, such that people who hadn't even seen Parasite had to say, you know what, I need to watch this movie that everyone's raging about. Same thing that happened with Alfonso Cuarón when he did Roma. Stories like that are so indigenous to us, but then, it's not what everybody will watch, but it is a story worth taking a risk on. What are the realities of this? Are we willing? Who's gonna? Because if you were being honest, Parasite and Roma were big risks. It could or couldn't have ticked. So are we ready to take that risk?
I mean, I think it's very tricky, and I'm of two minds about it in a sense. I think it's tricky on the one sense because, like, even for the other big industries like Bollywood, you still have like the Bollywood very noisy high films, like with the dance and the music, and then you have like a bit more serious films. And it's obviously the same thing with Hollywood, like in terms of independent films versus studio films. And there's a similar thing here in a more, let me not use the word rudimentary, but something synonymous with that. Where we have to always, and I think that's the idea for the filmmakers and the producers in particular, how do you balance artistic integrity with being able to make a return? I think it's tricky. The reason why I say it's tricky for us here is because, like, even in terms of the distribution infrastructure, we still have a way to go. I think, like, I remember speaking to a potential funder, and he was mentioning that like the highest grossing film in India is about just a little over $1 billion. The highest grossing film in Nigeria
was that the movie that won the
RRR?
Yes, RRR. I like to call it.
I'm not sure. I'm not certain it's RRR. I think it might be a different film.
Okay.
But then there have been films that have like really, hit like in the hundreds of millions. Like in our own domestic markets, we our highest grossing film, even with the likes of Black Panther, like the local like Battle on Booker Street, or even like with the King of Boys. We're not looking at more than like $2 million. And then if you're going to an investor and then you're trying to like make a deal, like these are the metrics that you look at, because this is the data that's available. I know that for years, and it's still the case now, like obviously finding good reliable data to back those projections and to secure the funding in has been tricky. I think it's been improving in the last couple of years. But I think obviously the opportunities are there. Opportunities are there because in terms of the distribution, particularly like international distribution, like there is more of an interest. I think our filmmaking has also started to become consistently better, or at least like progressively better over the last couple of years. And then it's like, okay, you know what? How are you able to really marry that? Marry that artistic integrity, that you're able to transcend just even like the domestic market with being able to really put a return on the investments, because it is very expensive business. Like,
it is, but I want us to touch on that very point. And here's my thing, Judita and Ishaya. Independent movies, if they haven't taught us anything, I don't know, but it has taught us that you can put together a movie that is sound, that is not going to break the bank. So is it still about the expense? Does a great movie need to be expensive? Because we've been talking about funding, and you just said a lot of money, $1 billion, $2 million. That is great funding. But do we need a lot of money to put together that movie that's going to put us on the map?
Is this open?
Of course. Okay. Shy, I mean, we could all just jump on it.
I think it's a few things, because like I think we obviously still need a lot of resources to kind of build our infrastructure.
When you say resources being money?
Being money, but also being expertise. But you still need the money to develop the expertise. I speak from a certain privilege, and I'm thankful to God for that I was able to go to film school, and like an internationally renowned film school. But then not a lot of directors and not a lot of practitioners have that opportunity, and especially like homegrown filmmakers, but they still get to do. And I think that's also the beauty of our art form, is that you're able to kind of learn on the job, and then like improve your skills as you grow. And then the audience is obviously like almost like a validation of the nature of, okay, am I reaching the audience? Is the story I'm telling relevant? And then there's a second layer of it where it's like, okay, you know what, is it relevant for the local? And which is why AFRIF's theme this year is actually indicative, is like Indigenous to Global. How do you make that internationally acclaimed film, or at least how do you make a film or a project that has that authenticity for the local audience, but then you're still able to reach an international audience as well. And that's the nature of, for what you mentioned about Parasite. And I think the South Koreans, I completely agree with you, Drew. Like the South Koreans have got this figured out completely. Like they're hitting it on all levels, and that's a playbook to actually look at and study. But then again, like the resources need to be there. The resources in terms of our talent development, the and resources in terms of our distribution avenues, the resources in terms of post-production. These are things that you might not look at tangible for project specific.
Yeah.
But then for industry wide, to have like a very solid set of practitioners within the industry that you can have multiple projects going on at the same time at a high level. It's very important.
It is. Drew, I would like you to just, sum this up for us.
Okay, so a certain bunch of points is Nigeria has to realize what they have at their disposal. Ishaya is actually in a very unique position because he said he's gone to film school, and I always bang on, get your training first. Most filmmakers who have changed the world came from very humble situations. I always talk about the Nouvelle Vague in France. Those guys were starving writers who changed the face of cinema. You don't need money to make a great film. You just need vision and dedication to be willing to die for your art. Nigeria is in a situation where you function at very low cost because you have very low availability of infrastructure. Exploit that. You have a country that is rich of culture and full-bodied of history. Exploit that. Make films for the art of it and you will come out with pearls. The whole idea about international recognition, let me simply debunk it this way. If you make a great film, you don't wait for white people to recognize you and say, oh my gosh, you're so great, you're just as good as us. That's never going to happen. When it comes to awards recognition, it's about campaigning. And even the biggest films you see out there, you campaign. When the film is good enough and you know it's not going to embarrass you when you get into rooms, all you need is certain key players in the industry and say, watch this film. When they see it's good, they will tell who needs to see the film and judge it for yourselves. That's how you start getting buzz. You start getting votes. And that's how you start making the shortlist. It's just politics. So the whole idea about looking at Korea as well as a template, look at K-pop. There was a band called South IG back in the day. There were a bunch of kids that started making European-style techno music. It shook the underground. And then it snowballed. The government realized it's the big deal. So by the time it went to film, they were like, we're not going to miss a beat. What we do is build almost like schools and camps where we perfect you, like what Joseph Jackson did with his family. That's what Nigeria needs to do. You only need like a cabal of a few artists. Give them what they need. Perfect them, they will be the beacon of what Nollywood is internationally, and it will snowball from there.
Shoo, shoo, shoo. This should have been a whole conversation. Judita de Silva, Ishaya, Bako, thank you so much for joining me on this conversation. This has definitely been one for the books.